1. First off, I should tell you guys that I live in Copenhagen, Denmark. Copenhagen is not huge by any means, but big enough so I found this incredibly creepy. I was at IKEA in the suburbs, a good 30-minute drive from my neighborhood. I had purchased a heavy piece of furniture, a huge bookshelf to be exact, and since I don't have a car, I am dependent on the different transportation companies that will drive your stuff home. Not sure if it's important or if it's just ridiculously bad luck on my end, but all these transport companies have like a piece of the parking lot, and you can just walk up to one of the trucks and ask them how much it will cost to drive to your destination, much like at a taxicab stop. I didn't think more of it, and walked to the truck nearest to me, or the exit, whichever. The driver leaned out and smiled. I asked him how much for a ride to my neighborhood, and he gave me a very good price. I agreed, and we got the boxes into the van. If you are only one person, you can ride with the driver, and since I had just made this hit-and-run trip to IKEA without either kids or husband, I just got into his truck, figuring that it was, of course, easier to get a ride than to catch a bus. Once in the truck, he asked me if I needed help with carrying it into my apartment, because that would cost extra. I told him no, because I was sure my husband was home. So I called my husband from the truck, and it turns out that he had gone out to buy something from a store much like Home Depot, and wouldn't be home for a while. I don't know why I had not thought about the fact that we were driving, and I had never given him an address, but it hit me after talking to my husband. I turned to the truck driver, but as I did, I saw his GPS with the almost correct address already typed in, and I think the driver felt the shift, and he just smiled and said, "I know your name is Diane, and you used to have pink hair." I wasn't really creeped out, but most definitely weirded out. I admitted sheepishly that I had no clue who he was, and I cannot remember ever seeing him before in my life. He said that it was okay and not to worry about it, and that he remembered all his customers. So I live in a big estate with many flats, and like 6 house numbers being the same, only divided by letters like 245A, B, C. To get to where you can enter the courtyard, you'd have to know the way because you'd have to turn up an unmarked left turn into a parking lot, and then turn left again to drive down a side parking lot. What I mean is that any taxicab or person who doesn't go here often would have to be specifically directed to the end of the parking lot where my flat is located. To my surprise, the driver just turns in from the road to the correct parking lot, and even turns left the right place. Now I am officially creeped the hell out. This can only mean that he is serious, and he doesn't just remember my name, but also my address. I called my husband again, but he is still at that other store, and will not be home for another at least 30 minutes. Since it's IKEA, it's in 4 cardboard boxes. That is way taller than me, and so heavy that there is no damn way I can even lift them off the ground. So I have a decision to make. I reluctantly have to ask the driver if we can change our deal, and I'd pay extra if he'd help me carry the bookshelf. He agrees, but says that I don't have to pay because he felt sorry for me. I have to admit that I was not happy about it, but it was either that or leave my bookshelf out on the parking lot. And I don't believe that he would believe that I could carry it, so I'm pretty sure he would have offered anyway. The door to my flat is at the end of a little path system that you can only get to on foot or bike, and he just hauls these boxes into a trolley like movers have, and starts walking down the path system. He walked directly to my door. Of all the doors and ways he could have gone, he went directly to my door. Like he knew where he was going. He asked me if I needed him to carry them inside my flat, and I told him that it was fine since he did it for free, just leave it at the bottom of the stairs. I did seriously not want him in my apartment, and I knew that I was home alone. Before he left, he insisted that the only way I could pay him was mobile pay since his credit card reader in his truck was broken. At this point, I just wanted to get rid of him, and against my better judgment, typed in the number on my phone as I saw no other way of paying him, and ergo getting rid of him. I noticed that my mobile pay registered him by a name, not by a company, so this was his personal number. I paid him and he left. I am still not happy about the fact that this creep has my personal number. And what creeps me out the most was that his excuse for knowing my name and address was that he remembered all his customers. But I know for a fact that I have not had things driven by that company before, and that it has been over 10 years since my hair was pink. And then I didn't live in this flat. So, creepy transportation guy, let's not meet again. Ever. 2. So this has been going on for a very, very long time. 3 years to be exact. And I'm a long-time lurker on here and thought it was time I finally told my creepy story. I'm going to keep it as short and accurate as possible. This has been happening for so long that sometimes things become muddled in my mind. So about 3 years ago, I had recently broke up with my partner of about 3 years. Once this happened, I began to get very creepy messages from a phone number. I thought this was my ex at first, but I'm still friends with them. And I know it's not them. The messages ranged from saying nice things to me such as, "You're beautiful, I love you," then to saying awful things to me about how they knew my deep, dark secrets and wanted to blackmail me. Honestly, this didn't creep me out so much, but I continued to block the number. But they always make a new number, I'm assuming from a text-free app. This continued on for a few months until things got very, very creepy. I began to never respond to these messages, and always ignored them. But one night I received a call from my best friend. She was very alarmed, and told me that the person who had been texting me all the time was doing things to her. She was house-sitting at a neighbor's house, which I had previously gone over to the night before. That night she was with some friends and was receiving texts from the same person who was texting me obsessively. But this time he said something along the lines of, "This is because your beautiful friend won't answer me." And he, assuming as a man at this time, sent her multiple pictures of the inside of the house she was in through the window. She closed the blinds, and after this, had her friend check outside, but no one was there. Lastly, she received a message describing their appearances. So at this point, I was very freaked out. I immediately the next day went to the police office to report it, and sent in evidence, and they said they would look into it. They didn't take it very seriously. 6 months or so goes by. I didn't receive any more messages, but always did receive phone calls from unknown numbers, which I assumed was him. So then I began dating this girl, who I'm currently still with now. Once this happens, more things start happening again. First, I found out that this person, for the past few months, has been obsessively stalking my current girlfriend's ex-fling. I don't know how he knows about her, but he has been following her to and from work, sending her strange messages and notes, etc. She also files a police report, but nothing happens. Icing on the cake, he pretends it was me the entire time. So not only is he stalking me, but he's pretending to be me, or to get me into trouble with the law. Once he gets tired of his game with this other girl, he comes back to harassing me. They begin to follow me everywhere, sending my girlfriend text messages of where I last was, such as food places or if I'm at school. I continue to report this to the police, but at this point, they can't do anything, they say. I don't know if he hacked my phone or what, but every time I mention to my girlfriend our plan on catching him, or taking measures to stay safe, he sends me a message, or her a message, saying that he has put everything under my information, such as my IP address or email, so that I can never find him and he will never stop. I don't even know if this is possible. The past few months, things have become more intense. First, he has made a fake email account under my girlfriend's name, and emails me pretending to be her. asking me to meet up or sending me strange poems about his love for me. How I can never find him or get rid of him. That he is always watching me. Then on Halloween I receive a package exactly on that day. It's a strange purple mask. At first I thought it was an accident. That Amazon just sent it to me accidentally. But then I receive a text from an unknown number saying something like, "I hope you enjoy your gift." And then it clicks. It is my stalker. I freak out. My girlfriend freaks out. We end up calling Amazon to track the package to see who it is, but they can't find the package anywhere in their database. Things lay low for another month. I go to the gym like every day, same time typically. This day it's cold, very gloomy out. I'm leaving the gym and I look over, and there's this man standing there. I don't have my glasses on, so I can hardly see his facial features, but he's wearing a hood, and he seems relatively tall. He makes a strange noise and just waves in slow motion. Sometimes men do really strange things to me like this. I have no idea why. And no, I'm not bragging, I hate it. So I don't think too much of it, but I am alarmed, and I walk back to my car and get inside. I lock the doors and check behind me. I always do this. I'm a very paranoid person. I see the man get into his car. It's a white car. I think, okay, maybe it's just a coincidence. Then I leave. The car leaves as well and follows me directly behind me, but not too close. I'm freaking out at this point, but my phone is dead because I used it too much at the gym to listen to music. This time I'm not going home though. I'm going to my grandparents who live close by to help them with a few things because they are moving. He continues following me and I turn into the driveway. They live down this very long driveway, but there's a ton of cars and people walking around. Turns out my grandparents are having an estate sale, which I think saves me. I drive into the driveway slowly and look behind me. I just see the same hooded man wave again slowly, then drive off. I know it's my stalker. I have no idea what he was trying to do, but this random estate sale saved me somehow. Lastly, I have received constant emails from him, creepy poems, but that's about it. The police know and I just keep updating the report, but they're still not taking it seriously. He knows everything about me, it seems, and has hacked my account, i.e. Facebook, Twitter, and my girlfriend's constant amount of times. We know this because we have set up those alerts that let us know if someone unknown has logged in, or is trying to. I'm tired of living in fear, and don't know what he is going to do next. So, stalker, I hope we never meet face to face. 3. I have a hard time recalling these incidents now, as I must have been in or around the 3rd grade, but looking back, I can clearly see the link between these events and anxieties I suffer from to this day. To preface this, I know I really wanted to avoid this cliché opening. I have suffered from death anxiety my entire life. Whether it stemmed from early exposure to death in media or the early deaths of my own family members, I don't know. But I was and am obsessed with it. I vividly remember resigning myself to a violent death as a youngster. So in a way I can ascribe some of the feelings and thoughts I had at the time to this pre-existing fear. But I'd be kidding myself if I attributed all of them to this. In elementary school, I remember snippets of interaction and conversation with a girl named Kayla. Kayla and I were in the same grade, and even shared a class at one point. I had always felt that something was a little off with her. She was unkempt, emotionally unstable, and just gave me a strange impression. Kayla had 2 brothers as well, Sean, who was a grade above us, and Daniel, who was at least 2 years our senior. It's very difficult for me to tell this chronologically, or even in a storied fashion, as I only remember certain conversations with them. The 3 of them lived with their grandmother at the time, and Kayla would tell me these fantastic stories about how their father was very wealthy and lived out of state in a mansion that they'd one day join him in. I also remember being told that their mother was using drugs, but I remembered very little about that as I didn't have any real understanding of the subject at the time. One day in class, Kayla commented to me that the three of them would mutilate stuffed animals. She described throwing them into the air, stabbing them, and ripping them to shreds with knives. Around this time, she expressed to me that the eldest brother, Daniel, had a detailed plan to kill their grandmother, presumably her as well, and run away with Sean to live with their father. This is where my apprehension about her turned to fear aimed towards her brothers. Another girl I knew told me that she knew Daniel personally, and I've confirmed this so I know I wasn't being bullshitted, and that he would often express violent thoughts like that, and spoke of killing young women specifically. Luckily, my meetings with Daniel were few and far between, and I don't recall ever having a conversation of that nature with him. Sean was a different story, though. I remember him leering at me in the halls, and one day, as our lines were passing, he looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "You're going to die." This sent me into a panic. I remember being obsessed with thoughts of these brothers harming me and told my mom. Not really understanding the gravity of the situation, or trying to minimize it to calm me. Told me that if he said that to me again, to simply reply, "So is everyone." Those are my most vivid memories of them, though I do remember some more second-hand stories from daycare friends about how Daniel was dangerous and rolled his own cigarettes. Nothing really happened to me personally, but I was extremely relieved when they didn't return to school the next year. In my senior year of high school, I began to actively search for these kids to find out what happened to them, though it was extremely difficult at first, as they have a very unusual and, to be honest, hard-to-spell last name. Nothing of interest came from that beyond me stating my desire to see how they turned out. I mentioned this story in passing to my best friend at the time, and she was pretty horrified by my retelling. She then called upon a girl we both knew was in our grade in elementary school, and asked whether or not she remembered them. Boy howdy did she. She was very reluctant to speak to me, but eventually she told me that she was actually very close friends with Kayla, going to her home at times after school. What she described to me only brought home every uneasy feeling I had about these kids. According to her, Sean was the violent one, not Daniel, and the one incident I could get her to describe to me involved Sean beating on the girls, choking Jess almost to the point of passing out. She described Kayla and herself locking themselves in a room as he was coming at them. She told me that Daniel had protected them on multiple occasions. Things like this had happened. The fear in her eyes, even 10+ years later, took me aback, and I didn't press for any more details. Today I'm doing some research for this post. I found that both of the boys have criminal records now, but for seemingly non-violent offenses. These offenses include resisting public officer, 14-2223, 2921.31 obstructing, and possession of drugs. Recounting all of these events like this kind of makes me sympathize with that family, though. It seemed like no one really cared enough to get them help as children, and I can only wonder what else they got up to during their adolescent years. Kayla, Sean, Daniel, I wish you the best, but let's not meet again. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 192. Thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Let's see, this is Sunday. Once again, halfway through the month already. Well, I'm having a very super sleepy day today. Got up way earlier than I should have. Had to go run an errand, and when I did that, I just thought, well, if I go back to sleep now, by the time I was done, it'll be very late by the time I actually wake up. which wouldn't be good because I had lots and lots of work to do today. I'm trying to get my 3 videos done as I usually do on a Friday, so I can have the weekend to myself. Of course, you guys will be getting this on a Sunday, but I record well in advance. And with that, I think I'm going to head off for now, start work on episode 193-4. Which one is this? That's how sleepy I am. 193 will be the next one up. And so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.